So, imagine this. You're in a foreign country somewhere, maybe on holidays, I don't know what you're doing there, who cares? Anyway, you're in this foreign country and all of a sudden all hell breaks loose. People are riding on the streets, overturning cars, the whole place has basically turned to shit. So you decide, I'm gonna get out of here. You grab what's on you, whatever's in your pockets right now, and a little backpack that you decided to pack beforehand because you are a prepared person. You get yourself to the airport, you fly off into a third country, and all of a sudden you find yourself locked down in another airport somewhere around the world with 5,000 other people. Now you have to spend 3 days locked down in an airport with 5,000 other people, and all you have is the contents of this backpack. So, what do you want in that backpack? Or, here's another scenario. You're at home in your own country, you're chilling out, and all of a sudden natural disaster hits. There's a fire or a flood or something that pushes you out of your home. You grab that backpack that's sitting next to the front door and you head out, jump in the car and get out of there. Now you've got to spend 3 days in a motel somewhere with nothing but the contents of your backpack. What do you want in that backpack? Or here's another scenario. Everything's collapsed. There's a massive shortage of oat milk. So all the hipsters start rioting, destroying things in the streets, and we have to run. So we grab this backpack and we head off out of our own city into another city and stay there with a cousin or a friend and just chill out for 3 days. What do you want in that backpack? So what we're going to look at today, friends, is the 72-hour bag or the grab bag. What kind of bag this is, what we're looking at here, is a bag that is for emergency purposes only, and it's purely there for us to try and survive for 3 days out of. So the general theory of the 72-hour principle for these backpacks comes from statistical analysis of natural disasters and when aid can actually be rendered to people within developed countries like what we're in here in Australia. So the theory being that most people won't go for longer than 72 hours before help actually arrives. So that's why I preface this as a 72-hour bag, or usually when I'm teaching courses to people, I teach it as a 72-hour bag just so you've got the context of what you're going to need to put into this bag. So when we're thinking about it, for starters, we just want to think about, well, what do we need to survive? Obviously, we need shelter, we need water, and we need food in order to survive. But on top of that, we also need some first aid gear. We might need some sort of form of communications. We might need to navigate. We might even need some form of self-defense as well. So what I'm going to do is pull apart my 72-hour bag and show you what I usually carry in it in a generic sense, and then talk about some of the scenarios that I would pack different equipment into that bag for. Let's check it out. Okay, so what we have here is a version of a grab bag, 72-hour bag. So this would be one version that I might take if I'm going overseas. First thing that I want to point out on this is that it is a backpack. Your grab bag doesn't necessarily need to be a backpack per se. It can be, a handbag or a messenger bag or a man bag, a satchel, a sling bag. Any of these sorts of things are going to work for this purpose. It's just, different sizes. So a backpack generally you can carry more in. Not that that's necessarily a good thing because then you'll end up carrying more weight. But for 3 days, I'd say a backpack is usually a pretty good one to aim for. Also, you can carry this on your back, obviously, as it's called a backpack, which means I find that I can move faster, I can run, and it's not in my way. I don't have to really think about it too much. It's just there. Generally, when I'm talking about 72-hour bags to people, I say if you're going to get a backpack no bigger than 40-45 litres, and that's an absolute max. So this one here that we're looking at is a Duda bag. It's a 26-litre pack altogether. And that's more than enough size. In fact, there's quite a bit of space in here that I haven't filled out because there's specific things that I would put in this in case of a certain event or something like that I thought might happen. The other thing to look at this is this does not look like a military pack at all. So we're not seeing military type colors or anything like that. There's nothing that says to anyone that I'm anyone other than somebody going to school or to work or on holidays or something like that. It is plain, it is civilian looking, and I highly recommend that, especially traveling around the world. If you're going to be traveling through airports and things like that, if you've got a military looking backpack, I'll guarantee that you'll get stopped by security at some stage and they'll pull apart your pack. Apart from that though, you know, just a regular sort of pack. I like this one. It's an old pack. I've had it for many years. I like this one because it's got this external frame that sort of sits off the back a little bit. It's actually a bike riding pack originally. I just found it really, really handy and, you know, slightly waterproof, but not too much. It does come with a rain cover as well, so I can cover it up in case of rain. Nice little clips and things like that on or hanging off all the shoulder pads, which means that I can feed things like water tubes from camelbacks or water reservoirs in the pack if I decide to have one in there. First off, when I'm packing a pack like this, I like packs that have lots of little pockets and zippers and sections in them. I just find that I can segregate my gear better as opposed to having one big sack where I have to basically pull everything out if I want to get to something in the bottom. So I prefer it to be this way, and then I have a certain way that I load out things, and it's usually around how quickly I need to access things or how likely I am to access things. So I've taken it out of this one, but generally I have a light source right in the top. So in here, I would be able to pull out a lamp or something like that, usually a head torch. And the other thing I usually have in here is wet weather gear. So being able to see in the dark is important, and being able to keep rain off me is important as well. So this one here is a nylon tarp poncho from Sea to Summit. This one I bought recently. It's actually a poncho that you can turn into a tarp as well. So I can use it to throw over myself, and the reason I like ponchos as well is I can throw it over the back of the backpack when it's on my back, and sort of cover everything and maybe disguise things as well so you can't see quite as well what I'm carrying. But it's easy to use as a tarp as well. You can string it up and it's going to keep me out of the rain if I need to set up somewhere overnight. And as I said, 72 hours. So I want some level of comfort, shelter, sleeping gear within this pack here. All right, so light and rain cover on top. Next thing that's important to me is maybe a little bit of protection. So I might have personal protective equipment on the outsides that I can access fairly quickly. That might be something like safety glasses or sunglasses that are ballistically rated, or you know, just hard wearing glasses that I can wear and protect my eyes. It might also be a neck sock. Again, I usually carry a neck sock in here, but I'm kind of using it at the moment more regularly, so I don't have it in here. And that's, you know, because we've got to cover up everywhere, and I like to look like a bandit, so I use a neck sock. Gloves as well is a really good one. I can't recommend going out and spending a little bit of dollars on good gloves. So, you know, you can go to Bunnings and pick up whatever gloves. You can pick up gardening gloves if you want for $5. They'll do the same job, like get some leather ones or something like that. Mechanics ones are usually pretty good. These, if you want to go all out, there's a couple other brands. This brand here is called Pig, P-I-G. They're actually designed for, I guess, shooting. So they're shooter's gloves. They are the most tactile gloves I've ever had. So gloves or personal protective equipment, that's something you want to think about. Next thing I've got in here, I mean, this is in no particular order, but in this one, I've got some form of water. So this is a Life Straw bottle. I use this one all over the world. Not this model, this is kind of a spare one I've just stuck in this pack for now. But they've got single filter ones, they've got two-stage filter ones that have a carbon filter in the top as well, which is the one that I mainly use. And they've got these plastic ones that you can see in, and stainless steel ones now, which I just upgraded to the stainless steel ones. But they're very handy. I highly recommend that. I highly recommend that brand. I've used it before. In the bottom here, I'll just show you what I've got. So this is usually, like classically in backpacks, your sleeping area. So this is where you keep a sleeping bag. I don't keep a sleeping bag per se, but I keep shelter, other forms of shelter. So these are Gore-Tex socks that I can put on. So it doesn't really matter what footwear I'm wearing. I can put these on and have dry feet. They're shell pants. So they're just waterproof pants that I can put on. So that and that combined together, and I'm fully waterproof. I don't have to really worry about the weather too much. So that's my shelter in there. I'd never really put a full sleeping bag. It's too heavy, too encumbersome. And I always tell people, like, always aim light with these things. Pack light, freeze at night, as the old saying goes. You don't want to put too much shit in this bag, and it's very easy to do. You will put too much shit in there. So try and avoid doing that, because otherwise you just will not pick up this pack ever and put it on your back. I can guarantee you it'll go in a cupboard somewhere and you'll never think about it. You might want to consider, if you're going to cold weather climate too, other little heating type things. So I carry like merino neck socks, as I said, maybe thicker gloves, beanies definitely, thermals, and things like hand warmers. So these are reusable hand warmers. So you just click that, it heats up, you can hold it in your hand for a little while, and then you boil them and it resets them. So again, that's sort of going into the shelter idea. Okay, in the main pack itself, this is actually food here. So getting on to food, these are just freeze-dried meals that are very lightweight. All you need is some water. You can eat them cold. They're a lot better hot, but you know, that's a form of food that you can have in there. I wouldn't carry that all the time personally. I don't carry that all the time. Just consider your need for that. If you think you are going to need it, like you are definitely going to be somewhere for a couple of days, then definitely throw in more food. Protein bars is another one too. Usually I've got packed in here protein bars. I've got it in my get home bag at the moment, which I'll go through in another video. This here is just a waterproof bag. So this is called a Baja Bag or a Baja Bag. Some people who don't speak Spanish so well pronounce it Baja. But they're just waterproof bags, and I use this to keep just extra warm clothing. So that's a thermal top. That's merino wool thermal top. That's just some socks and jocks. Socks and jocks, always recommend taking a spare one of them. Plus, you know, accidents happen. A form of communications, or a backup form of communications. So this here, I use it as a UHF radio, but it's a dual band. It's UHF and VHF radio. This one here is the Baofeng or Baofeng UV5R Type 3 or Mark 3, but the UV5R, if you're looking this up, pretty cheap Chinese radio, but does a lot of stuff. So if you're in the market to buy some form of backup communications, this is one of the ones I recommend. Other versions that you can get are pure UHF radios. So this is a GME, and this one's a Uniden. This is a 2 watt, and this is a 5 watt. This is a 5 watt as well. These are just locked on UHF frequencies. That one is UHF, VHF. You can get yourself in trouble transmitting on the wrong frequencies in that, so be warned. If you're worried about it, just go out and get a UHF radio. But backup communications is important. You should think about that, because your phone will go dead eventually. Backup power as well, so I've got an extra battery that goes along with that. Also backup communications plus navigation now. So these things, whereas I consider shelter and food and water as survival items, these are not necessarily survival in of themselves, but they can aid in your survival, and they're definitely what I call force multipliers. So they increase your ability to do things on the ground. It can be difficult to navigate your way around, areas, especially if you don't know them. And certainly you can pack things like maps. That's a great idea. So, hard copy maps, waterproof maps, all that sort of stuff. They're great. You need a compass though if you want to navigate, and you also need to know how to do that. It's a practice that you need to do. So there's knowledge required in that, and there's practice in that. This is a GPS, works pretty much anywhere in the world that it can look at the sky. It is also a SOS, so it's a personal locator beacon, a PLB. So if you get in trouble, you can flick that open and hit that button, and it's going to send an SOS. You can connect this to Garmin's satellite system, in which case then you can also utilize it to connect your phone to and send text. You can send text through this just by itself, but it's easy to do it through the phone. So you send the text to this, it sends it to satellite, and it's kind of like doing a satellite call. So it's kind of like having a sat phone, but only for messages. So this is a handy piece of equipment. Garmin Inreach, relatively expensive. I think you're looking at about $650 for something like these at the moment in Australia, in Aussie dollaroos. There's a cheaper version which is smaller, which you don't get the GPS on. First aid kits, I've got 1,000,001 first aid kits. If I'm going somewhere overseas and I'm working with clients in the role of a security consultant or a security advisor with them, I'd probably pack a lot more first aid. But at the bare minimum, I've got something like this, which is just a little backpacker first aid kit off the shelf. I used to hate these things, but they've got so much better over the last 2-3 years. So it's got wound care, burns, blisters, medication in there, things to stop bleeding, little instruments like tweezers and thermometers, cuts and scrapes, so your Band-Aids and stuff like that. It's got everything to kind of get you out of trouble in these. And I've used this all over the world. It's good enough. It gets you through most of the problems. All right, just randomly, what am I pulling out now? Okay, this here is another water bottle that I've bought. When I'm looking at water bottles, I like to recommend wide mouth water bottles, clear and hard for people. This way, when I'm filling it, I can see what's actually in there and if anything's gone wrong in there. I can also get water in quickly or out quickly if I need to, and I can affect that water, like stir it or do whatever I need to. Within this bottle here, I've got this here, which is called a Millbank filter. So that's it's just like a big material sock. So I can put any sort of water, I can hang that up, put any sort of water, and down to the bottom, it's got a point that it dribbles the water out. So I just set that up, set the bottle underneath it, and it'll dribble and do a first filtration of water. So I'm not getting any large particles in it. So these are water purification tablets. There's a whole heap of different brands out there that you can get. But water purification tablets, they're basically chlorine tablets that kill everything in the water. Doesn't taste good, but I can guarantee it's definitely light years beyond drinking Giardia or any other sort of disease that's going to breed in your stomach and cause you a lot of pain. The silk liner, so that is a sleeping bag liner, so just basically a giant silk sack. It's designed to go inside of sleeping bags or for use in things like hostels and stuff like that where you got to bring your own linen. But the thing about the silk is it keeps you nice and warm. It kind of keeps in that little bit of body heat. Again, it's not like a sleeping bag. It's not going to keep you warm like a sleeping bag, but it's going to keep you a little bit warm if you're in a pinch. And this here is just one of those little inflatable pillows too. So we're getting more into comfort sort of side of things, but again, I consider these force multipliers in that if I can, without these, if I got shitty 2 hours sleep, I'd be in a much worse state than I got an okay 4-hour sleep or 6-hour sleep with these sort of things. So you got to consider that too, that sleep, rest is a weapon. You do need to rest in these situations. You don't want to get burnt out. So anything that's going to do that is a force multiplier. All right, so I've got a poncho liner here which can keep me warm and dry, keep me dry. But I've got another thing here that could probably do that, which is, it's called the Sports Utility Blanket from SOL. And basically it's a reflective blanket that's reflective on one side and orange on the other side. And I'm not sure if you can see that, but you could wrap that around you like an emergency blanket. So it's exactly like one of those little space blankets, the emergency blankets, going to keep you warm, but it's a lot bigger and a lot more hard wearing. Really thick, strong weave on it. You could use this to like carry wood or carry a person in it if they were injured, or you can wrap it around you. You can build shelters out of it. You know, heaps of uses. Great as a marker panel too if you're out in the wilderness and you need to be seen. So that's another form of shelter there that you might want to consider. More things you might want to consider. This is a water bladder. So this is a 4-litre water bladder. All right. Just to finish off, so a few other little items that you want to think about. You might want to carry some sort of toilet paper, hand sanitizer, or way to wash your hands, keep yourself hygienically clean. You don't want to be poisoning yourself or giving yourself pathogens, any sort of arse-to-mouth disease. And one thing I try to carry in pretty much all my packs, and have ever since I was in the military, is hand sanitizing wipes. So your little Dettol wipes, your wet ones, antibacterial wet ones, whatever brand or whatever you want to get. I find these really, really handy. You can obviously wash your hands with them. You can use them to have a little bit of a shower. You can use them if you need to go to the toilet in a pinch as toilet paper as well. So again, comfort but slash hygiene item. So Not an exhaustive list, not an exhaustive amount of gear or anything like that. There's a whole heap of things that I could put in here that I don't. And a whole heap of gear that you'll see that is actually in my other pack. So this is actually part 1 of 3 that I'm going to go through of different packs. So I'll take apart different packs and I'll show you where I keep other things, and hopefully it'll make a bit more sense. Yeah, but that's basically my 72-hour bag. So there we have it. That's the 72-hour bag, or at least a version of. One thing that I would want you to keep in mind though is that with these 72-hour bags, you really want to think about what your actual goal is and what you're planning for. So you need to look at what you're doing in your life, how you're actually situated, and what you expect to be using this 72-hour bag for, because it's going to be different for different scenarios, being that sometimes I am out in a foreign country which is a high threat environment, and I'm also looking after clients in a security advisor or a security consultant role. So I'm going to be carrying a lot different types of equipment, probably a lot more first aid type equipment, and bulking it out for a lot more people than I would just something that's just for me. Also consider who else you've got within your team or family. So for me, you know, I have a partner, I have pets, I have dogs, so there's equipment that will go in there that is also appropriate for them if my dog's not going to carry its own gear. So think about that, think about your own life, think about what you're expecting to go wrong and start planning around that. But as a basic general rule, these are the sorts of things that you might want to be thinking about. If you've got anything else that you think would be super appropriate to put in there, or if you think that I missed out on anything at all, feel free to chuck it in the comments. Apart from that though, stay safe, stay prepared, peace out.